All right, Joe, we're live, and it is so good to have you, especially because you also went to the University of Arkansas.
I did, and it was a great time there. I ended up there 5 years,
Yeah.
2 years working on, master's degree, in a program they called Advanced Degree, Completion for ROTC instructor duty, because some universities require if you're teaching at the 400 level that you gotta have a master's degree. Got it in my functional area, which was maintenance, logistics. And so that was an MBA with a lot of heavy automatic data processing courses. So I finished the graduate program and then taught 3 years at the University of Arkansas, the seniors getting commissioned, into the Army.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I was just looking here. I didn't even realize I had it, but I got a University of Arkansas hat right here next to me. And
Go Hogs.
that's right. Go Hogs, man. I don't have too many people. I haven't had too many guests that have spent time in Northwest Arkansas. So it's small world because you've done so many things throughout your career. You've been so many places throughout your career. And so just to have that spot in your life where you spent a lot of time there, I just thought was really cool. And again, just a small world that we're able to connect through that.
It's a beautiful area of Arkansas, really is.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Joe, I would love for you to just to share your story because like I said, you are a busy man. You do a lot of different things. Military background, you've taught, you lead companies, you speak, you're a guest on podcasts like this. You have your book out, The 5 Minute Drill, which I'm a huge fan of because I live on LinkedIn for my career and use it for networking and connecting with people and building communities. And so everything that you're preaching, I'm definitely picking up and try to use myself. But there's a lot of things in there too that I think even if you do use LinkedIn a lot, there's a lot more you can do with it. And so Joe, just tell us about yourself and again, just kind of your story and then kind of lead it into your book and what you do with that.
So, I grew up down on the Mexican border in South Texas, about 10 miles north of Brownsville, a little town called Los Fresnos. We lived 3 miles outside of a town that was 1,252 people, so, anyway, so small, school, double A school. Yeah, I think there's 425 total in the school. We graduated about 80. So a month after graduating from high school, I was in the Army, and reported to the U.S. Military Academy at West Point. 4 years there, got commissioned in the infantry, spent 30 years in the Army. And so, bottom line was when I got out, I thought, okay, I'm doing all the things I need to do to transition. So, anywhere I could get more education, I did. So, I picked up a second master's degree at the University of Arkansas while I was teaching, did that, in the off time and picked up another master's degree at the Industrial College of the Armed Forces. And so I figured, well, when I finally leave the Army, I'm about as prepared and as educated as I can be. So you leave the Army at 52, and it was a big shock because really the, the civilian world doesn't have any need for you in the private sector because you just haven't come up, through their verticals and all that kind of stuff. And so, that was a really dark time in my life, because I figured, "Okay, what am I doing wrong here?" So one time while I was interviewing, somebody said, "Look, you could sue me if I tell you this." And I said, "Well, hey, I'm just trying to I'm just trying." And he said, "Joe, what you need to do is, hey, you're interviewing for a project manager job. You're the best guy I've ever interviewed, but we're not gonna hire you because you've handled more money than the CEO. You've handled more people than the CEO. You've handled bigger projects than the CEO. You could take my job tomorrow." I said, "What?" In the Army, if I was the smartest guy in the room, we had a problem. And he said, "Well, kind of not the way it works here." So anyway, he said, "Joe, go find some guys or gals putting a deal together or start up, kind of, and find something you like doing and just put your sweat equity in there and get after it." And so, finally did and, worked on putting deals together and, learned an amazing amount, about, all these kind of things. And I had no idea that you work on 10 deals in the private sector because maybe only one of them is going to actually close,
Yeah.
because you work on these deals and then a key group doesn't come to the meetings anymore. And that's kind of it. And so did that and got into various things after that knowledge transfer company, did executive search, and did independent consulting. But the bottom line up front, what I learned from all that was military people do not know how to articulate what they did in the service in a hiring manager's vernacular. In other words, they don't understand what okay company command is, not unless they've been in the service. Now, all of the military industrial complex understands that. And that's why a lot of people gravitate to it because I mean they're going to people that grew up around them or, know what they do and all that kind of stuff. But in the private sector, you've got to make that effort because nobody's going to do it for you. And so what I do now is based on what I learned, hey, transition's not easy, and it's easier if you're younger. But the longer you stay in the military, the harder it is because now you have to convert all that. And so when I was transitioning, LinkedIn wasn't really there like it is today. Today, you have this tool that you can explain what you do or get somebody to help you translate what you did in the service so that people that are looking for you can see what you bring to the table. Long
Yeah.
answer.
No, that's perfect, Joe, because I'm sitting here, I'm in the recruiting space and we have federal clients, we have private sector clients, and then there are certain companies they want individuals with military background. There are others who make it very clear that somebody with that background may struggle in that environment, even though it's for right or wrong, they take that approach to it, even though they'll admit, hey, that's probably the best worker we could have. And so it gets confusing. Like, well, why not hire them? But everything you're saying, I've experienced in the recruiting space of working with different clients. But I haven't come across a lot of people like you who are helping in that professional space with that transition mission from the field over to the private sector. So I think what you've built and what you're helping people do is very important because I haven't seen a lot of people help. I can, as a recruiter, say, hey, I can try to, sell you in there, but a lot of it has to come from the candidate side and what they can show. And you're helping them build that out and present themselves the right way to have a better chance. So
Yeah, and
yeah, I see that.
it's hard work on my part and it's hard work on the person I'm working with because we're going into a part of their mind that's a fertile field. There's no furrows there, and it's taken me a little while to figure out, okay, how can I move this person's subconscious, about 3 inches to the left so he can see the world in a different way. And it takes a good hour, you know, uh, to see if we can't move that and what I found is once they can see, they can do, but you can't do what you can't see. So, like I think I was telling you earlier, I coached my 755th, but really yesterday I coached my 756th executive veteran or student. And most of them are 40 plus year olds trying to figure out what's next. But I've coached people that are 15 years old trying to get into an extremely competitive high school all the way to 84 and they want it back in the work.
Yeah. That's incredible. That's incredible, Joe. When did you, I guess your personal story, when did you realize the power of LinkedIn and when did you start utilizing it? And then how did that process work where you said like, hey, I can create something here and build a business and a model around teaching people how to use this tool and how to network. What did that look like for you and when did that take place?
So I got on LinkedIn, a lady from Trinity University, or I'm sorry, TCU in Dallas, Fort Worth. She was in the section of the college that helped get get the graduates jobs. And she said, hey, Joe, this is a new thing. Maybe you ought to take a look at it. And that was like July of 2004. It took about 3 or 4 months because when I first looked at it, I thought it was something that was going to steal my identity. Okay. Because remember, the the dot boom,
Yeah.
where everything went crazy was about 2 or 3 years before. And then, military people are always operational security and all that kind of stuff. And so when I finally realized the power of it, it took about 3 or 4 months later, and I started playing with it. And one of the things I was working on a deal in China. So the problem is, how do you find other people at that time that had worked in China? Today, it's relatively easy. Everybody's got a sharp answer. I'm talking about 2004. You had to go to an executive search firm, pay money, and say, I'm looking for project managers that got experience in China because we had a deal over there. So we're looking for people. And, we paid this outfit and they worked with it about 3 or 4 months and said, look, we did our best effort and kept a third of our money. At that level, that's not small money. And I said, you didn't do anything. He said, well, we gave it our best effort. And then what I played around on LinkedIn and got to run in some searches on there. And this is back when it was wide open. Like anything they were doing, they just wanted people, right? And to show you how far back that was, I was calling the director of marketing on the phone, and he answered the phone.
Yeah.
You know, you can't find
Couldn't
a
do
phone
that
number for
today.
LinkedIn today, So anyway, so what happened is I started doing searches on China, and okay, I found people that had experience with China. Now, it wasn't as in depth as it was today, but what happened is you could send a person a note. You could get them on the phone and they said, well, I really don't do that. But I said, look, who do you know that has done it? Well, when I was over there, Susie Q was there and, what's Susie Q's phone number, So I used it just like that to get all the information. So it was really powerful in the very beginning. And I thought, wow, I mean, this has got a lot of power. And oh, by the way, as it was building out other sections, I said, well, you could take your entire military resume and put it on here. I mean, because you say you're out there, right? Looking for opportunity, whatever. So did that and just was able to save a lot of money, in a new way. And then after about a year, I said, okay, these other people could be helped by doing this because then I went through this process of finally rewriting what I'd done in the military, trying to put it in a way that the civilians can understand. And it was a couple of years later when somebody asked me, he said, Joe, do you ever spend any time in the Army? I said, I'm there. I'm there. Because this was before, when you put your job that would put the symbol out there, there was
Yeah.
none of that stuff. Because, when you put the Army symbol out there, well, who'd you work for? U.S. Army. Well, it's got an Army symbol. Well, that was before all of that stuff. You just went through kind of like a resume, right? Really wasn't a visual platform.
Yeah.
It was kind of a list platform and just learned how to use it. And then I started coaching people on how to use it. So I've coached probably about 1,000, 1,200 people as a ministry, trying to help them over, and then 756 professionally. And what I learned was um, people just don't know what they don't know. And you just kind of start out with them doing that. But it was it's a great tool. Even today, I get contacted, and you probably do too. Hey, this is the new AI lead tool, and it's gonna, work for you. And I always go back and say, all of my leads come from LinkedIn. I said, I've coached in 15 different countries and I've never advertised.
Yeah.
And I said, well, how'd you do that? And I said, well, they find me. So I'm a big believer in that. Take everything you be no do, put it on a LinkedIn profile, and the worst that could happen is nothing. And, so for me, it's just been an amazing tool.
Yeah.
And people really do not know how to use it to get what they want. And I liken that to, hey, you want to catch a trout. We're out here fishing, but I just do not think bacon is on the trout's, repertoire of what he wants to eat. If you want to catch the trout, you better put the bait out there that the trout likes, right? And so what you have on LinkedIn is you have people wanting to catch trout and they're fishing with bacon.
Yeah. That's a great analogy, Joe, because I was thinking of this too. I mean, I've been using it for, I think I created my profile in 2020. 13 maybe. But really when I got in the recruiting space in 2016 is when I just, started living on it 6 to 8 hours a day. And so I would, you've been using it longer than I have, so you've seen more changes, but I've seen it change and update and more people join it. But it's still very interesting that even with how powerful and popular of a tool it is, there's still so many people that don't know it. They don't spend the time to network and connect with people and send messages and put specifically what they're doing so recruiters like myself can find them. But once you put the work in to get that profile optimized and supercharged up, yeah, like you said, you get tons of messages of people just finding you for things they need, and it makes it a lot easier to find a job or find someone that can connect you to a job. A lot easier than just applying and missing a lot.
Well, and people don't understand. So, well, I'm gonna go talk to Chris. And I said, well, it's not Chris that's going to be the person because I mean he's in the book space, he's doing recruiting. So I mean he's not gonna hire you. But this idea that Chris's network, right? So Chris mentions to Joe Frankie that, hey, I talked to this guy the other day and you might ought to take a look at him. Well, what's going to happen? I don't have time to sit there and listen to 15 minutes of Chris tell me his story. What I'm going to do is say, hey, what's their name? Okay, so I write the name down. So now what I'm doing, I'm going to LinkedIn. And so LinkedIn is your avatar. So when you're not awake, when you're not doing something or somebody's not directly talking to you, they're talking to your avatar. And so do you want your avatar to be in flip-flops and holy shorts and, a t-shirt with food stains on it? Or do you want to show up kind of like I'm showing up, with you? I mean, am I dressed right dressed? Am I covered down? Do I look like a professional? Do I act like a professional? And so your first impression always is going to be the avatar in your LinkedIn profile. So consequently, if that's the case, you would think people would want to show up like they would show up at an interview. People haven't put that together. But on average, I think everybody is having 137 virtual coffee meetings a day because your name is out there and there's churn going on and all that kind of stuff. And so I always believe, hey, show up, AJ squared away, and good things will happen to you.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, no, again, Joe, I'm a big proponent and everything you're saying, I'm like, yes, yes. I've told several candidates I've worked with or kind of helped them guide them a little bit too. Like, hey, we need to make this picture look a little more professional. Hey, let's fix the bio. Maybe don't comment that. But there's still a lot of learning and a lot of teaching to go around out there. So I think you'll have plenty of people to work with and help for the foreseeable future.
Well, and what I've done now, I think this year I'm gonna work on my first 3-generation family, where I've done the grandparent, I've done that daughter, and I'll do the son as he's working on his getting ready for his internships, because hey, you want an internship? You gotta show up.
Absolutely. Well, I love that you wrote the book, The 5 Minute Drill, with, some people they write personal development books or other things that kind of lead into to speaking and coaching, but you've honed in on a tool and a skill set that most everybody needs. And I just like the fact that you took the time to put that out there as like a book for dummies. Hey, there's your blueprint on how to use LinkedIn and network and be successful with this. And again, I just haven't seen, there's people out there that post all the time, hey, I can help you with your LinkedIn, I can do this or that. But you have a proven formula here that you're able to show, like, hey, I've got the print here, I coach here, and I haven't seen too many people put in the work that you have to show credibility to be able to do this. And I love that you share how many people you've worked with. Hey, I just helped
Yeah.
my 700th some professionally. Like I've got a story to tell. I've got results. And even yesterday when I posted your book through Books4Guys, there was someone that commented immediately, "Hey, I can attest to this. Joe helped me and it was amazing." And that was within just a few minutes. So I just thought that was really cool just how much support came as fast as they did just from posting your book out there on LinkedIn.
Well, I've been around the barn a few times.
Yeah.
So, no, the book was fun to do, and what I had the reason it's organized that way is I have executives, and they say, "Joe, I don't wanna do any of this LinkedIn stuff," and, but everybody tells me I have to be out there. Now, first of all, when you're talking to a CEO of a big company, they got a marketing department, right? That person's never even seen their LinkedIn profile, maybe. But when you start these smaller companies, 1,000,000 to, 8 to 10,000,000, which is really a small business. Well, they don't have a marketing department. And they said, "Well, Joe, I mean, I really won't wanna mess with this." And I said, "Well, you just gotta be out there." I said, so all these guys wanted, "Hey, I wanna know how I can spend the least amount of time on LinkedIn." And I said, "So you gotta go mark your territory." You know? I mean, that's just what you gotta do. And so here's a 5-minute checklist. If you don't like LinkedIn, not a problem. But do follow this checklist, and you just need to do 5 minutes a day, and you're kind of like, "Okay, my presence is out here."
Yep.
Then, let everybody else, deal with it. And so I had this one guy call me. He said, "Joe, I mean, I tried this, and you can't do this in 5 minutes." And I said, "Well, I bet you a Ruth's Chris steak that you can. But let me tell you what, you print out that checklist and all you do is you go by and that you're doing that." And I said, "Try it for 2 weeks." And because what happens is you get them into LinkedIn and then they see something that's interesting. So then they read 30 seconds on that. And then, oh, their
Yep.
buddy down the road, LinkedIn knows who their buddy is. So here's what your buddy did. And so they read that. I said, "That's not on the checklist."
Yeah. Stay
And
focused.
so, so anyway, so he did that, and he said, "Joe, you're right, but you just got to follow the checklist." And I said, "Uh, you know,
That's it.
there's nothing wrong if you want to spend 30 minutes there. That's up to you." But what most of you guys asked me to do is, how can you show up and only spend 5 minutes a day? I said, "There's nothing wrong with spending 5 minutes at noon and 5 minutes in the end of the day, whatever. That's up to you." But I think once you start using it, what you're saying is you're starting to get utility
Yeah.
out of it. You've got some nugget of information from your buddy. You got something, or this post, I got an opinion on that, because this is my space. Write 3 sentences.
Which is the goal, to get you to that point where you're like, "Oh, I wanna be on here and interact and grow my
Well,
presence."
so yeah, so what happens is they're gradually learning how to use the tool. When you gave them something that would say, "Okay, you really don't have to learn how to use the tool. Just follow the checklist."
Yeah, yeah,
And so the book was written, the first part of the book, first 7 pages. I mean, we're done with the checklist.
yeah.
And then the rest of it is how to help you build a profile, how to use LinkedIn. And it's a 1 hour read. And the hardest thing that Lori and I have ever done in our lives is write a 1 hour book.
Yeah. Yeah. No, but that I mean, efficient, like that, you're helping people be efficient, get started, get the ball rolling, and then you can run once you just do the basics.
Yeah. I said, LinkedIn is crawl, walk, run.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Now, well, Joe, another question for you is you're a chief strategy officer as well. So you do coaching, you're working with companies, and you're doing all these things. How do you personally balance your time and optimize just your success managing different things?
Well, I mean, I've tried to, first of all, I tell everybody, okay, if you're a 40 plus year old, you know, you need to find something that you really like. Because if you like it, it's not work. Okay. And so that's what I've done. The stuff I do, I kind of like. So I can't wait to get to it. It's not like, I got to get up in the morning and, I've got to get on this podcast with Chris, Oh my god, No, I mean, I'm glad to be here and, I mean, this is fun. I mean, talking about this stuff is fun. It lights my fire. So I only do the stuff that, I really like, or maybe I don't know crap from apple butter about it, and both of them are brown, okay? But these other guys want me to help them with something, and so I'm not the technical expert, and I'm comfortable with that, but I can help them, from a strategy perspective, How do you approach, the board? How do you approach the Chinese? Those kind of things. And third, the healthiest people I have ever seen in my life are 90-year-olds with 3 jobs. I mean, they're in it, and they're current and everything else. And I said, and I saw that with my father-in-law. I mean, he was as sharp as a tack up until all of a sudden, he had a health event and, next thing you know, he was gone. But for 90, I mean, he was like the Energizer bunny. So to me, if your mind is engaged, your body follows.
Yeah. Man, I love that you said that, Joe, because I couldn't agree more. Thankfully, I've got a wife that keeps us humming from an exercise standpoint, but I love talking about purpose, waking up with excitement, purpose, something you like. Because funny enough, my father-in-law is the same way. He loves to work, doesn't want to quit. He could retire. He didn't want to because, he's like, what am I going to do? Sit at home? I can go make a difference doing what I like to do. That you're saying that because you are making an impact. So you're waking up energized. You've got a purpose. You're helping people. And you're right. I think the body follows the mind in what you're doing there. So I couldn't agree more with what you just said right there.
It, you know, it it is a it is a challenge. It it really like the guys I've seen retire were, hey, I'm looking to go fishing, hunting. And the ones that are really involved in that, I mean, they do well because I mean, they are fully engaged. But the ones that kind of didn't do anything, I'm about 10 years later. I mean, next thing you look is, they're checked out of the net.
Yeah, no, no, you're right. You're right. And it's motivating for me. I don't ever, hopefully I've always got something that I'm interested in and something to work at or work towards. And so I think a lot of people need to hear that though, as just kind of a reminder, life is short. So you might as well do something with it while you're here. But Joe, I've got one more question for you because I like to ask most everybody that comes on the podcast this, just, for Books for Guys purposes. You've got your book out there and we've got it on the website for if anyone who's interested in reading it or getting a hold of you for some help. For you personally, what's a book or two that has had an impact on you either personally or professionally? And if someone like myself comes and says, "Hey Joe, I need another good book to read. I'm ready to start a new one." What's a book you like to recommend to other people?
Parkinson's Law by C. Northcutt Parkinson. And it was recommended to me. I was working for, a guy trying to get a CEO for him. And he said, hey, you ever read Parkinson's Law? And I said, no, I hadn't heard of that. So then I went to Google a little bit and, so it's a book put together with about 7 or 8 essays that were written for The Economist. And it was written in the 50s. But if you wanted to go see exactly what Doge did, with Musk and them, it's in the first 2 chapters of this book. It deals with administration and bureaucracy. And he uses really sound examples. One of the chapters is how to go to a cocktail party, where the most important people are going to be, what time they're going to arrive, and where they're going to be. And they're going to leave, 15 to 20 minutes early. I mean, and who's along the outer wall, what kind of type of people. I mean, it's just different and amazing. And you and I are in the recruiting business. So one of the things in there are, if you write a job description, right, and more than one person applies for it, then you improperly wrote the description. Like the example he gave is we need an Egyptian paleontologist. You're going to work, 75 miles from civilization. This is, way back in the 1800s. It's going to be extremely hot. There's going to be no medical care. You're not going to have really anybody to talk to, but, you're going to be running this crew. I mean, it just went down the list and it doesn't pay well. And they had 2 people apply and they considered it a failure, But, what I learned from that is truth in advertising, right?
Yeah.
And so I hated when I was doing executive recruiting, you bring 5 people, all that kind of stuff. And so what I do now for my clients, I just bring them one at a time. If okay, that's no go, no problem. Go get the next one. But this idea of screwing around with 4 other people's lives and, putting them through that drill,
I take the same approach. I'd rather get feedback on one so then I can tailor the search for the next one to make sure it's more ideal if they need to be. Um, yeah, I'm sitting there thinking though, just recruiting space, job descriptions, companies and candidates, we could do so much better about making the system a little more efficient than what it is now. But that's probably a conversation and a topic for a different day.
well, yeah, we can talk about that on a different day. I told this one guy, he said, "What this is going to be like?" I said, "Look, don't jump into this. This is a crap sandwich, and it's going to be a 6-month turnaround deal. But there's nothing wrong with the company. But these 2 areas are hosed up, you know, and if you're into that, because what I'm telling you, because I'm not going to bring you forward unless you're committed." And I'm gonna make sure you know what you're getting into. And, the client was real good. "Hey, we'll pay you for a month just to assess the situation. Make sure this is what you wanna do. Because once you climb on that horse, we expect you to ride."
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, Joe, this has been one of my favorite conversations. Just again because of the commonalities of recruiting and just some of the places we've spent time in, our both of our passions for the tool of LinkedIn and what all you can accomplish with it. And so I think between our networks, I think there are going to be a lot of people that really enjoy this conversation, listening to it or watching it. And so I just want to say thank you so much. Number one, for supporting Books for Guys and our efforts to encourage more young men to read and to take that seriously. And just again, for your time to come on here and talk today. I really appreciate it. And again, this has been one of my favorite conversations. So thank you.
Hey, Chris, I mean, this is really a great format, and if we wanna do another subject at another time, happy to dive in that. But Parkinson's Law by
Perfect.
C. Period Northcutt Parkinson.
I'm adding it to the reading list and I'm probably going to get that up on the website as well. So if anybody wants to read that, they can add that to their reading list. So, but no, thank you, Joe. Really appreciate it.
Oh, man, this was fun. Thank you.